Hello, and welcome to People Keep Dying, the podcast where we talk about how people keep dying and how people die. I'm your host, Stephanie.
And I'm Angela.
And we are back again for another episode of this wonderful podcast where we tell stories, terrible stories, sometimes funny stories. It's never happy.
I know my story for today is definitely not happy.
Yeah.
So it's going to be super fun.
My stories were pretty depressing too. But yeah, so we're just going to get right into it. I hope you guys are great. Thanks for coming in and listening to us.
And you're probably skipping all this part.
Yeah. Yeah. No chit chat in the beginning for you. Hope you missed this. On the morning of April 24th, 1856, Samuel Cox was finishing up breakfast when he heard his dog barking in the forest next to the house. Thinking that his dog had caught a squirrel or whatever up in a tree, he went out to get the dog and hopefully kill whatever the animal that was out there so that he could eat dinner that night. He was providing
Was he like really poor? And
it was like 1856 and it was in Pennsylvania and logging hadn't even been started in Pennsylvania yet. So it was like super
logging country? A county?
Yeah, definitely. Cause there's a lot of forests. Anyway, so it was still super forested in. Yeah, they were pretty poor. But Samuel was just very much like a man of the land. So he had actually built them this the log home that they were living in, with his bare hands, and for his wife Susanna, and then they had two little children.
I wonder if those kinds
George
of homes are still around.
And Joseph. I mean, probably. I mean, maybe not
because they're not up to code anymore. And I've done a lot of.
But maybe they the Cox family became super big, and I mean, I don't know.
You're talking about them, so obviously they did something. I mean, something bad happens.
Yeah, they had two little boys. So he was married to Suzanne, and they had two little boys.
And
George and Joseph. They were 7 and 5. So on the morning of April 24th, Samuel heads out with his rifle to go kill the squirrel, and so he goes out and bang, kills a squirrel, and he collects his dog and the animal, and he starts heading back. But he decides that he's going to take a different route home instead of the normal pathway, which he probably should have. So he wanders off his usual path, takes a little scenic route, taking in all the nature because that's what he loves the most. And he takes the sweet ass time getting home. Eventually he gets home and he throws the rabbit down on the table, and he's probably
to feed his whole family.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it was back in the day. They weren't eating much, and maybe it was a big rabbit. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. They compensated with a lot of potato.
They were Irish.
Maybe. I mean, who knows? Are the Cox Irish? That sounds like an Irish Cox.
It sounds like a European name.
It's definitely
sure.
Yeah. So. Susanna, his wife, comes in and she's all just like, "Where's the boys? I thought the boys were with you." So it's believed that when Sam left to go into the forest, his two sons, George and Joseph, followed after him, unbeknownst to go hunt the rabbit, maybe kill
just to hang out with the dad,
maybe just to hang out with the dad.
1800s, they don't care about.
So the boys, they wander off. They're not really sure, but they wander off. So the parents, they run outside and they start calling out the names, but they didn't receive any replies. They run out to their neighbors and to town, and they gather people and are just like, "Hey, our children are missing." By nightfall, they had over 100 people in the forest to search for these boys, and we're talking, it's nothing but forest.
Yeah.
It's early 1800s. It's 1800s. The towns haven't fully been civilized yet. It's all log little tents and stuff, and not a lot of people. So 100 people showing up from all around the county was a pretty big deal. And they were trying to go through the forest, and they're chopping down trees, and they're starting these big fires, hoping that eventually somewhere these boys would find a fire and wander their way in. There was a stream nearby called Bob's Creek, that had overflooded due to like the winter snow melting and stuff like that. So they only searched up to a certain point because they believed that the boys wouldn't have gotten across this like stream. So when they were like mapping out the forest, they like kind of stuck along this river and only stayed in this one area.
So they never found them.
Eventually. Let's just get through the story. So by the following day, for the four surrounding counties, over 1,000 people had showed up to search for these boys.
Jeez.
At one point, they decided to move over and search the other side of the creek, and they searched along the creek. They didn't find anything. The following day, on April 26th, the people had decided, you know what? The parents did it. They killed these boys. They're not in the forest. We should have found them by now. They murdered their children so that they could receive donations from the town because they were so poor. Mm-hmm. And it's like, is that something that they fucking did back then?
Maybe.
Where people would just like kill their kids because
that's the
like, hey, we'll just...
they're able to draw.
Yeah.
That it must have happened before.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
So they turned on the parents and started like running all these newspaper articles, and like they searched, like they started searching the house. They like brought in this like dowser, which is a person. Oh my God, when I was reading about this, it sounds so fucking crazy, but then like it started back in like I think the 1500s, where they would take like this Y-shaped rod, and then they would walk around and they would look for like metal or like water, and like these divination rods would like lead them to water. Well, apparently Americans used to do it to find petroleum oil, like all the way up to like the 1900s. Like,
it must have worked.
Suppose it's pseudoscience. Like it's just like it's really just pure chance. But anyways, they brought these people in with these divining rods to like find the graves of these two little boys, which obviously turned up nothing. And then they also brought in a witch who claimed to know where the bodies were. But she basically like walked them through the whole forest for like several hours, and then they were like, "You're a fucking liar."
Did they burn her afterwards?
I didn't really hear much about the witch after that.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, she dabbled in the black magics. Is what they wrote about her. So nothing really turns up. 2 weeks later, a local man by the name of Jacob Dibbert wakes up in the middle of the night, and he turns to his wife and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I just had this crazy dream about those two little Cox boys, and they were dead, and I was walking through this forest, and I was on this pathway, and then there was like this dead deer, and then beside the dead deer there was this like little kid's shoe, and then there was like a pathway, and then this birch branch, and then these two dead boys." And the wife was always like, "You're crazy. Go back to bed."
I wonder if he had like seen it.
So then for the following 2 nights, he has the same reoccurring dream. To like same thing. He's walking along the pathway, dead deer, shoe, birch trees, whatever. And he tells his wife about it, and his wife is still like, "You're crazy. Like, there's no way you would have known about it," because he didn't recognize any of the things. So I guess he's like having some dinner party or whatever, and he's telling this to his brother-in-law, Harrison, and Harrison is all just like, "Hey, I think I know that place that you're talking about. I've been there once or twice before, when we were looking for, or I don't know, I don't want to say that it was when they were looking for it, because I'd just be lying at that point. I don't know if that's what it was.
But I mean, like,
the brother-in-law had said that he recognized some of the stuff that he was talking about in the way that he was describing this ravine, because there was like a little bit of like a stream coming down a mountainside, and there was a ravine there and the birch tree. So the brother-in-law was like, "I think I know what you're talking about." So the two of them head out to go search for these boys. And just like in his dream, they're walking along, they find a trail. Along the trail, they find a dead deer. A few steps after the dead deer, they find a child's shoe. And then there's a group of like dead birch trees all like shaped together or whatever.
I thought you were going to say a group of dead children.
No. birch trees, and inside were the bodies of the 2 little boys. And they had died from starvation and exposure to the elements. So yes,
poor kids.
So at the end of the day, it wasn't the parents. It wasn't like wasn't a pedophile or anything like that. It wasn't bad things. It was 2 little boys had like wandered off, had gotten lost, and had the dad, most likely had the dad taken his normal route back, he would have ran into the boys, and like the dad had to live with that for the rest of his life.
But I'm surprised that he didn't walk that same way back when he was looking for the kids.
Well, they would have already been wandered off, right?
Oh.
So it's because like so much time had passed because he was diddle daddling trying like taking the scenic route on his way back. So Jacob received some money for reward for finding the boys, and with the money that he received, he erected 2 gravestones on behalf of Samuel and Susanna because they were too poor. Yeah. So good guy, Jacob. One was in the town's graveyard. They were buried together in Mount Union Cemetery on May 8th, 1856. And it is said that over 5,000 people showed up for the funeral, and it is the largest one ever in part of the mountains. Because everyone was really sad about these boys. Which, I mean, I wish that I would have been able to see like how far away the boys were found versus like where they were lighting those fires and doing the search and yelling.
And I was wondering, like the boys should have been able to see it unless they were like down the mountain or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so I don't know, but at the same time, like they were pretty young. Like who knows how long it was until they died, right? Because it was a couple weeks before they were found. But at least it wasn't a case where like because they had thought that animals had gotten them. Or like they had been kidnapped or anything like that. So one was put into the cemetery, and then the other monument, which is better known as the Lost Children of the Alleghenies, is located deep in the woods, a few miles off the route of 869 outside the village of Pavia in Pennsylvania. And if you drive down Route 869, you'll see a sign that indicates where to turn off and see it. And there's a little like monument there. It's all caged in. Yeah.
Those poor boys, though.
Yeah. But that is the story of the Lost Children of the Alleghenies.
Thank you. It seems it's so like it's nice, I guess, to have a story where someone awful wasn't a part.
Yeah, they're really like it's an awful story, but there wasn't. It's a sad story. It's a
nature versus. Yeah.
It happens all the time where like kids wander off, right, and then they die. Although, wasn't there a story recently? I think it was probably within the last 5 years where like they said the father was like, oh, the 2-year-old had like walked out in the middle of the night or something and like died in the elements. And he found out that no, he had like locked the child outside at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
I didn't know about that one.
You didn't know? Okay.
No.
I'm gonna do that story.
All right, see
if I can find enough information on it.
I was thinking more like the alligator story from Disney World.
Oh, you know? No.
That's like
there's been a lot of like where children like get out of the house at like at night or whatever, and then they die because it's like snowing or. There's been I know of at least 3 stories in the last little while within like the last 5 to 10 years of that happening.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll have to do that.
Thank you for your story.
You're welcome.
Mine will also involve a child.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, why am I cheering for dead children?
It won't be a dead child. Though,
okay.
But there is a child involved. And also, I don't know how to
murders
say
are the
anyone's name.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it goes sometimes.
So I changed all their names according to Wikipedia.
Okay.
Because Wikipedia, for some reason, gave me English names for all these people. All the articles I read afterwards doesn't call them by their American or English westernized names.
Okay. Well,
but Wikipedia gave me the westernized names. So when you list this, I'm going to give you the Chinese name. But then, for the most part, I'm going to call them Michael because it's easier.
Okay,
for me to say that.
That's fair. There's nothing wrong with that.
So, we're going to go around the world to New Zealand.
New Zealand? God damn. That's not where I was expecting.
Go not Asia, but still do an Asian murder because, of course, I will.
So, it's an Asian in New Zealand.
Yes.
Okay.
So on September 15th, 2007,
Ooh, recent.
near the base of an escalator at Melbourne, Australia, Southern Cross Station, because they're in Australia right now. 3-year-old Claire Sue, I think it's Sue, or Kwan Soon Sue, which is her actual name, was
Okay.
found crying and abandoned. She had been left there, a 3-year-old.
Okay, so a 3-year-old was found abandoned. Sorry,
At
is
the
that
it's at like a
is that an
train
air-
station.
Okay, I was gonna ask
Yeah.
if it was a train station or an airport. Okay.
Yeah, it's a Southern Cross Station. Looked it up and it said it's like a, yeah.
Aw, okay.
So due to her age and I think a language barrier, because the police basically were just like, we don't know who she is, and they can't get her name out. The
I think I know this. I
Yeah,
think I remember
maybe.
this story, possibly hearing about it when it was going on.
and 2007 is pretty
Yeah.
recent.
Yeah.
So the police in Melbourne were unable to obtain her name and nicknamed her Pumpkin
Okay, yeah, I definitely remember.
due to
I'm
the Pumpkin Patch brand clothing she was wearing.
I'm getting like Philip DeFranco.
He probably he might have covered this.
I'm
He's
getting
been
like
around forever.
I'm getting like a college when I was in college watching Philip DeFranco, him telling me the
Yes.
story.
He might, yeah.
But I wouldn't
you'll
know. Yeah,
recall
I'll
all
recall some of this.
So, on September 17th,
Yeah.
people were able to learn the identity of Claire, as well as her father, Nai Yin Xue. But Wikipedia said his name was Michael, so that's what I'm gonna call him
Okay.
because
Michael Sue.
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 Sue?
I looked. Okay, so this is really weird. The last name spelled Xue, and I looked up 4 different YouTube videos trying to figure out how to say the name correctly, and all the comments at the bottom were like, "That's not how you say it," and I was like, "Well, then fucking tell me how to say it."
Yeah.
Whatever.
Spell it like you say it. All right. You know what? Let's go with shoe.
I got Shu, but I'm gonna say the name a couple more times, and that's about it.
All right.
So,
Michael Shu.
and Michael Shu is a 55-year-old martial arts expert.
Ooh.
So Michael had flown them back from Auckland because they're originally from Auckland, New Zealand, and he had flown them both to Melbourne just to abandon Claire at the railroad station.
Wait, what?
He had flown like the two of them from their home in Auckland, New Zealand, to Melbourne, Australia, just so he could leave her there because he leaves her there. He's not in Australia anymore. He's in LA.
Wait,
He abandons her and then flies across the country.
on purpose or just
Yes,
like
on purpose.
Okay. This isn't
Only good news is that she doesn't die in this story.
man. Oh man. Okay, this was not going the way that I. Maybe I don't know this story. Okay.
But after finding out Michael's identity and unable to get into contact with Claire's mother, Anon Lu, or Annie, police would end up at the Sue's Auckland home.
Okay.
And on
How were they able to eventually like identify her?
because there was tapes of
Okay.
the two. I think they like
Oh, they
back
finally
traced
yeah.
it.
So they probably went through the security
all the
tapes.
TVs and kind of figured out like where'd they come from. Which,
Okay.
Yeah.
How many people were walking with this little
3-year-old.
child?
Yeah.
With
There is a
an
video
all
of him
orange.
leaving her.
Fuck
too.
this dude.
So
I thought maybe it was like a Home Alone thing,
Like,
or
oh,
like
gets-
maybe they got kidnapped and the daughter, like who the fuck, like
no.
okay,
So they end up at the Sue's Auckland home, and on September 19th, while investigating Michael's family home, journalists were there to report about the missing child, and they were leaning on the car to write like their notes or whatever, and they all of a sudden were like, "It smells really bad here," and that's when the police opened up the boot of the car and found Annie's body. Police discovered 27-year-old Annie's naked body in the trunk of Michael's car.
oh my god, so he killed us. What?
She was strangled to death.
That,
And at that point, it was also questioned by a lot of people, like why the police didn't check the car in the 2 days that they knew.
Well, I mean, I can kind of.
I guess I could kind of see it too. I'm not really sure if like that's the first
If they,
thing you look at.
if they
It was in
have
the
no,
driveway.
it's one of those things where like, if you have no reason to suspect or to look at something
For a dead body, you
for a
don't-
dead body,
yeah.
you're not going to, because they had no reason to really suspect foul play with the
No.
wife. And it's easy to look back with like hindsight 2020 and be like, well, you should have checked the car, but it's like, yeah, but They had no reason.
No.
They had no reason to suspect. Although with the smell, good
The
for
smell,
that.
yeah. Good for the reporters, I guess, for mentioning it. But I mean, the police would have eventually found it, but it would have stalled the investigation. So at this point, Michael had already left for LAX, and then at that point, he was kind of free roaming around the U.S. So Victoria police gave the information about Michael to Interpol in the U.S. on September 20th, but then there seemed to have been a whole bunch of like dumb complications due to paperwork and who fucking knows, because while Interpol issued a red notice to the LAPD, the LAPD claimed it did not receive an arrest warrant from Interpol and that they required a warrant directly from New Zealand. So they weren't looking for the guy because they're like, I don't know.
Because paperwork. Because red tape, which is bullshit.
And then New Zealand refuted the claims and was like, no, we're not required to send you another warrant. Like the one Interpol is good enough for us. And at that point, LAPD had wasted ton of time.
Yeah.
Like, because...
What the fuck, LA? Although, I mean, LA deals with their own.
Yeah. So
they're barely dealing with their own shit.
There's a lot of stuff that happened. Like in 2007, yeah. Come on. So the New Zealand police were criticized for failing to discover Annie's body for 2 days.
Yeah.
And taking so long to issue a warrant for Michael, because they should have issued a warrant on the 17th when they figured out Claire's identity.
Yes.
Instead of on the 20th after finding the body.
Yes.
Because abandoned child is still pretty bad.
Yeah, they definitely
not as bad as the body, but pretty bad.
I mean, once they realized for sure that she was abandoned, they definitely should have issued the arrest warrant, but they should have at least had something out there where they were looking for him after they found the child's identity. Once they knew the identity, maybe not so much the arrest warrant, because maybe they weren't 1,000% certain that she was like abandoned after the body fucking sure.
They knew that he was a piece of shit because when he landed in LA, you could see him giving like a smile and like a finger gun to the camera. It's like, because he's a piece of shit.
Ew, that's disgusting.
So at this point in time, because they're investigating Michael's violent past came into light. Because you have to wonder to yourself, a 55-year-old man with a 27-year-old wife. Something's going on here.
I mean,
right?
Not always.
There was not to be
this case, but that's not always what I think.
But most of the time,
I usually think that there's some daddy issues.
Yeah,
is what I usually think. That's bias of me. But
on the previous year, in 2006, on September 21st, Michael was charged with assaulting Annie with a kitchen knife. The judge presiding noted that the police feared if she had not escaped, her injuries would have been severe or fatal.
Okay, so we've got some domestic abuse.
And police said at the hearing, Michael was fully capable of killing the victim due to his training and discipline because he was an expert martial artist.
Yeah.
And they also said he created a climate of fear in the home by having pictures of himself in like kind of intimidating and threatening martial art poses all around the house.
Oh, I mean... That's subjective. That's like because maybe he just likes to have photos of himself and not necessarily to instill fear. But I don't see the photos.
But at the same time, I think in combination with everything else, it's exactly what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
Just
but
the photos
it's
by
just,
themselves would be nothing. But in combination with everything else,
So but sometimes photos are just photos.
Despite all this, Michael was released on bail after 1 week because no one died at this point.
Well, yeah, the wife died.
No, in 2006 she wasn't dead. Yeah, this was like
sorry. Right, this was
period.
Fuck, I hate that.
So in June 2007, Michael was in courts again. This time charged with punching her in the face and threatening her again with a knife.
Dude,
despite the attack, the court judge entered no punishment, sending him free. And this is because they decided that Michael had no previous convictions because he got bail last time, so I guess he was set free.
Yeah, no. When you receive bail, it's just that you're out on bail. So maybe he hadn't been convicted at that point.
Maybe she dropped the charges because she was scared too.
Maybe.
You see that a lot as well.
Maybe he punched her in the face because she wouldn't drop the charges.
So, well, this was like 8 months later. Yeah. So, yeah. But I'm pretty sure he was pretty abusive to her the whole time.
Yeah, I imagine she was not
but
having
this is
that
bullshit.
Great of a life.
The judge released him because Michael had no previous convictions, and judges focused on the sentence practice that gave the best chance for repair the family unit.
Yeah.
which is also like,
Yeah, but it's just like, he's beating. No, he's beating his wife. Like,
and it was only 3 months later that Annie was found dead in the trunk of the car. So
I don't understand the whole the no conviction thing. Like, it sort of sounds like they lucked out with a shit judge.
It got really unlucky in the fact that every time I was looking for information about this, and you go to Wikipedia and you go to cited sources, all the cited sources were gone.
Yeah. Oh man, I've had that a couple of times.
Yeah, it's really frustrating.
Because it's like, well, especially because you can't find it anywhere else.
No.
And it's like, well,
so then I don't know, like, I can't read the original source to discover more information of what might have happened.
No, I understand.
So the U.S. Marshals issued a wanted poster describing Michael as armed and dangerous, because I think if you're like a martial artist, you're in that level, your hands are considered a weapon. And he was also featured in an episode.
He's armed and dangerous.
He was also featured in an episode of America's Most Wanted, which is where he gets like the countrywide look at his face.
Because everybody was sitting down watching America's Most Wanted in 2007. Like, cable was still, internet hadn't quite taken over enough yet.
It did.
In 2007, yeah, but like streaming sites haven't. Cable was still pretty prominent,
but YouTube was still around at that point.
YouTube was just starting out, but it wasn't. I wouldn't say that it was like
a lot of the videos dominating. People were just kind of like doing whatever.
There wasn't any money there yet.
It was lonely girl times.
Yeah.
Throwback to how old we are.
Yeah, we're pretty old.
So on February 28th,
still so young.
On February 28th, 2008, 5 months after the murder, a group of 6 people living in an apartment block in Chamblee near Atlanta, Georgia, recognized Michael.
Damn, he ended up in Georgia?
Yeah, because he was trying to get the fuck out. You know, they know he's in LA, so he has to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And they try to, like, I read that they tried to inform the police, but they had difficulty making themselves understood. So I thought maybe there was a language barrier.
Maybe they were
but
high
I couldn't find any connections to I couldn't find any information about who called. But this is really cool. So the 5 men and 1 woman who had basically taken his pants and tied his legs up and taken his belt off and tied his hands up. What? So they had him in custody by the time the police came. Dang. So they hog-tied him and then called the police and were like, we found him.
Jesus fucking Christ.
So I thought that was pretty baller. I'm like, man, he's a martial artist too. Like, that's ballsy.
Yeah, that's...
And then America's Most Wanted, it's like he's armed and dangerous. And you're like, you know what? We're going to hog-tie this guy. Yeah. I don't give a shit about this. Dude, exactly.
Drugs are a factor.
So, and then I don't know. I don't know anything about
listen, I'm saying...
They're drugs.
They were on some drugs and they were feeling pretty...
Heroic. Yes.
And they took him down.
Imagine if they got the wrong guy, though.
Then it'd be super funny. They were probably the ones that would then get arrested.
Yes.
For unlawful restraining of a civilian.
But fortunately, they didn't. So
I don't know.
So Michael initially gave several fake aliases before they found his New Zealand driver's license and his wallet with his real name on it.
Yeah.
So since Michael had overstayed his U.S. visa, he was liable for deportation rather than extradition. Because extradition is so much harder to get, but deportation, super easy.
Yeah.
As we know.
Paperwork.
Woohoo.
Americans and their paperwork.
It's everywhere in their paperwork. If you want to extradite someone, it's a lot of paperwork no matter what country. So on March 9th, 2008.
But they'll deport you.
Michael was deported to New Zealand to face murder charges.
Good. What about those abandonment charges?
From what I read, he was never charged with them only because it was kind of like there's no.
Because we may as well just get him on the murder.
Yeah. Well, I think because it's a different country too. Yeah. She would have to go to Australia for that, and Australia was like, you know what, it's yours.
We don't give a shit. We don't care about this 3-year-old. Is she okay? Did we get a good update for her? Okay.
I mean,
sorry. You should just tell me your story.
So his trial began on June 2nd, 2009, where a picture of how Annie and Michael met became more clear.
Oh.
Annie, a Chinese national, moved into Michael's tenant in 2004.
Okay.
I replaced the zeros with 9s, and then I was very confused for a second. got this. So to gain New Zealand residency, they married despite the fact that Michael was 20 years her senior and a shitty person. And that's the reason why they got married, which makes more clear sense to me of how they ended up together.
Oh, he was probably just like, you're mine now.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay.
He was prone to jealousy and displays of anger.
Yep.
So I had read a story about like a guy who said that he was, friends with them and whatever. And in New Zealand, apparently, to say hello, you like kiss each other's cheek or do a little peck. And Michael did not like that. And he would get very jealous and like start fights with her and stuff about that kind of stuff.
Wow.
And
I couldn't even, you know what? I have been with men like that. What am I saying?
So in 2006, when the first assault was brought into courts, Michael had held a knife to Annie's stomach and threatened to stab her.
Jesus Christ. What a piece of shit.
She fled to China
Annie.
with Claire, but returned hoping to make things work because in most cultures, it's all about trying to make your family work for your child. You want your parents to stay together as much as possible. I get it. It's shitty. I get it. So jurors also watched footage of Michael as he abandoned Claire, literally just walking her, dropping her hand, and leaving. And there are videos, which I didn't watch.
That's so sad. That poor little girl. Gosh.
But of course, because Michael is the defendant, he painted a different picture.
Of course he did.
Saying
What was
that
his story?
Annie was a cheating piece of crap.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't care. I don't
she
care if she
cheated
cheated
on
on
him.
you.
No.
You don't get to kill her.
No.
I'm sorry.
You get to leave her.
She can sleep with 100 men. She can have 100 other dicks inside of her. You
Can
don't
leave her.
get to kill her.
No.
You can leave her.
But he's also
You clearly didn't want to have the
He's also
baby.
going to say he didn't kill her.
Well, of course he is.
So he painted a different picture and said that Annie had cheated on him with a younger man. He claimed that she had died from sexual misadventures or erotic asphyxiation with one or two men.
And then who put her in the trunk?
And the thing is that the underwear she was wearing when she was found included 3 sets of DNA, and only one was his. And that's why I think the defense had that information and went with that. We're just like, well, it could have been those other people. They never figured out who those other 2 people were. But then that was like, it's like a plausible deniability,
weird.
right?
I mean, it's not to say that she is, because I'm not going to.
No.
But it's also, it's like, I mean, he could have. It's
Could've
weird
still killed her.
that he could have still killed her. How did she end up in the trunk of the car?
There must have been more information because the Crown, like the whatever, claimed that this was preposterous, that this was impossible. And so they must have had more information they didn't like let out because of that.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
Michael said that she disappeared and was heartbroken by her unfaithfulness. And he left Claire for Melbourne to spite her. Like he took Claire with him just because he was like, well, she left me.
Yeah, but then you just left your fucking baby.
Well, no, this is what he says. But the spite didn't extend to the reality of looking after a child. And since Michael was too proud to return his daughter, he left her in a safe place where she'd be found quickly.
No.
That's bullshit.
You're a fucking no.
Michael's lawyer stated it was big news in Australia, big news everywhere. It's a case of a bad man becomes the best target for murder. I have real issues with abandonment myself, but the act doesn't make him a killer. Basically, like he might be a shitty person, but he's not a killer. But it didn't matter because the juror, which was by the way,
we have photographic proof, videographic proof of him being an asshole by dropping off his kid. But just because he abandoned his daughter a couple hours after his wife died doesn't mean that he actually killed his wife. Like,
exactly.
And then to be like, the spite didn't include like the realities of having taken care of this kid. Fuck you, dude. If you didn't he should have just left the kid at home.
Yeah.
Realistically, if he was going to abandon her anyways.
No, that's worse though, because then that kid would have died starving.
Well,
because that mom died September 10th, and then
but she probably would have been found. Like that little girl would have been able to go to a neighbor and probably would have been found quicker.
Maybe, but she's 3, so it's hard to know what would have happened.
I feel like he took her to Australia as a way to dump her off in a different country,
and then yeah. So, anyways, the juror came back with a guilty verdict, and on July 31st, Michael was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum non-parole period of 12 years.
Good.
Claire was taken in by her paternal grandmother and Annie's mother, Lu Xiaoping, and they reside in China, where she gets visitation by her half sister Grace Sue, the 27-year-old daughter of Michael, who had also been abandoned by him.
Oh my gosh.
And the grandmother said that Grace is doing all right.
Well, that's good. I'm glad she's doing okay. She would be what? So she was 3, so she'd be 15 now.
Yeah. Hope
Grace,
you're doing really good.
I hope you're doing really
and no
well.
one's ever bothering you about this.
I hope you're getting therapy. She probably needs it. I imagine she'll probably have some abandonment issues for the rest of her life.
For sure.
Unconsciously.
But that was my story.
Thanks. That went in a different route than I thought it was going to go into. And now I don't think that I actually heard that story. But I definitely know of, definitely misdirection. Poor Annie, man.
I know.
Man. I'm kind of on the side with the people that were like, hey, police, you should have found this body earlier. But at the same time, it's also like, but they didn't know she was missing.
Yeah. They
should have suspected that she was missing.
Yeah. Like
they should have suspected a lot of
usually
things.
Mothers don't abandon their children. Like, usually parents don't abandon their children. Usually. Not always. Usually.
But if they were going with the story, but I mean, yeah, because you already had one parent that abandoned her, like, realistically.
Yeah.
But they should have been on the mindset of
the mom is missing.
The mom, like, why did the mom not call and file a missing person report if the father had kidnapped her? But either way, hindsight 2020. It's hard to really know. Yeah. Well, thanks, man. I really enjoyed that.
No problem.
And thanks to our listeners. Thanks for coming in and listening to our story. It's you can send us an email at peoplekeepdying@gmail.com. You can find us on most social medias. All social medias.
All.
Most
Never Snapchat.
Not Snapchat, because fuck that one. But mostly on Instagram and Twitters at People Keep Dying. And yeah, we hope to see you guys next week. We hope you're alive next week.
Don't die.
Don't die.
Try not to.
Try not to. And try not to kill anybody this week. That's your homework again this week.
Yeah.
Just another week of not murdering anybody. Don't shoot up anybody.
But if you do murder and you want to give us like a heads up, maybe we'll call the cops on you.
The inside
scoop.
Be
really helpful.
I mean, I won't call the cops on you.
I will.
But
I'd like to prevent a murder. That's my story.
You'd like to prevent a murder. Is that a bucket list of yours?
Prevent a murder. Although I'll end up being murdered trying to prevent a murder. So, yeah.
I feel like I would probably get murdered trying to prevent a murder.
Yeah.
But I mean, bucket list. All right. That's all, folks.
Bye.
Bye.